ChatGPT and I made a Lego movie, but how did we actually do it? Well, I got on ChatGPT and I said, write 3 different short movie stories about a number of random characters. Have at least one protagonist and at least one antagonist. Make up random items for the people to use. Explain the details. And so it created 3 ideas, one of a lost treasure hunt, one was a space race, but what really caught my attention was the island survival story. And so the protagonist here was Sam, a resourceful survivor, and the antagonist, it said, was the island and the harsh, unforgiving environment. The interesting thing is later in the story it mentions a predator that stalks him at night. So really the predator is the real antagonist in my opinion. The random items that he had to survive were a knife, a fishing line, and a shelter made of palm fronds. After a little time on the island, Sam finds out about this predator that's stalking him at night, and eventually the predator actually attacks him. But of course, Sam fights the predator, and eventually he's rescued and returns home. Now, it didn't actually say much about the predator, and so I asked it to describe it. It ended up just telling me a bunch of generic details like it was mysterious and had sharp teeth. It didn't actually tell me what it looked like, so I asked it, what did it look like? And basically, it said one possibility could be that it was a cross between a reptile and a panther. I then got on my Discord server because I have the Midjourney bot, and I said make a picture of a cross between a reptile and a panther, and this is what it created. Now I didn't end up really using this because Lego is, not that detailed at this scale, and this is what it ended up looking like. So now with this information, I decided to write the script and have the plane crash, and in several days of getting food, building shelter and stuff, and in a day where he fights the panther and then gets rescued. I didn't want to do the plane crashing yet, so I just decided to do all the scenes on the island first. On day 1, I decided Sam was going to find water and build a shelter. And so I went back and asked ChatGPT how he actually got the water. It hadn't specified in the story originally, so it just gave me a list of possible options. I decided to have him find some coconuts and then knock them down with a rock. And just to make both of our lives harder, I decided to have the first rock not be big enough to knock it down, so he had to throw 2 rocks. Nothing too complicated, just a lot of masking. I think it turned out pretty good. I also had to pop his arm out to cut off the top of the coconut. AI said that he should make a shelter out of palm fronds, except he already had his raft, so I decided to make it out of raft and palm fronds and a little driftwood to hold it together. Day 2, Sam went fishing, so you know what that means, more masking. This one was especially tricky because I didn't think about it ahead of time, and the clear bricks were behind the rope, and I was also lazy, and so I didn't take a clear shot between frames. So there was a few imperfections, but I don't think anyone noticed it. He also built a fire to cook the fish he caught, and so I had to ask ChatGPT how he made a fire. One option was a magnifying glass, so I went with that. I decided to make the flames in post, so I used this red light and I just shined it straight at him and across the fire and just moved it a little every time I took a picture. I then asked ChatGPT what traps he used to defeat the predator, and once again, it wasn't explained in the original story, and so it just gave me a list of possible ways he trapped it. I then looked up a video of a panther walking to get the walk cycle right, and let's just say it's a little bit hard for my Lego figure. And so I was finally ready to do the chase scene on day 3. But one thing I wanted to do is this dolly zoom effect. Now, if you don't know, the dolly zoom effect is where you start with the camera far away and you zoom in, and then you move the camera towards the subject while zooming out. So it stays kind of the same, but then the lens is getting wider, and so you're getting more more background, or you can do it the other way. So it was used in Jaws and also a couple other movies for different effects. So I took a base plate and put it upside down, and then put some bricks up on the side so I could move my phone stand precisely without making it move in any weird directions. I did some color grading as the sun went down, and then with that stop motion done, I started working on the harder things, like the Coast Guard plane that picked him up from the island and the original plane that he crashed. The cargo plane wasn't too bad, just I had to hold it in the air and take some pictures and then do a bunch of masking. The masking was pretty easy. The cargo plane, on the other hand, was a little more tricky because I kept forgetting to take a clean picture of the background to mask with, so I had to do it several times. And even then, the shape of the plane was so weird with the wheels and everything that it took a lot of work masking to get it to look right. And I'm not that used to masking with DaVinci Resolve, at least I wasn't, so it took a lot of work. Which, by the way, there is a video coming, I'll make it in the future, of how to mask with DaVinci. It's actually really cool. But as I mentioned, I wanted one of the propellers to be spinning and the other to not. So the one propeller that wasn't spinning, that was easy, just leave that in the plane. Then I decided to take the other propeller off and then add it back on in post. And so after several attempts, what I figured out is put a green paper, and then I took the propeller and put it onto an actual motor to spin it. And that way it would get blurry when I took the pictures. And then I took that video of the spinning propeller and just layered it on top of the plane without a propeller. And that's how I got the shot of the plane flying with only one propeller spinning. Let's just say that took a lot of time to figure out and do. Alright, now that all the main stop motion is done, it's time for the fun stuff. Audio effects, music, and the little VFX left, like the fire. But it turned out making the Lego fire was actually not that fun. I was following Rio Forte's tutorial with Lego to Blender, and so I got some bricks in Mecha bricks, and then I put them into Blender to make the fire and smoke, but I didn't have much experience with animating with Blender, so it took a lot of fiddling and a lot of time. But in the end, I made some little smoke particles and flames to use. I think it would have been just easier to animate the actual Lego fire than to make the CGI. Next was dialogue. That was pretty simple. I just went through the movie and recorded myself talking. Alright, got a snare trap and a pitfall. I got sound effects from multiple different places. Honestly, I've forgotten where some of them come from. YouTube Studio, Sound Bible. The best sound effects are really just straight from YouTube. You just look up a sound effect and a lot of people let you use it. And then I also made a couple of my own sound effects. The water swishing from the fish was actually me swishing around a pool brush in the pool water. And then I actually made the sound of him cutting open the coconut myself too. I think I just hit like a butter knife on something soft and then lowered the pitch a little. Then I got some free music from filmmusic.io to use for the panther chase and then at the end of the movie. So what did we learn? Well, ChatGPT is actually really good at writing movies. You just have to ask for the specifics. Because I asked for a movie with a random protagonist and antagonist, but it didn't give me a lot of details. And when I asked for the details, it said that it wasn't specified in the story, so it just gave me a list of options that were possibilities, things that could have happened. So really, if I were to redo this, I would have the same simple message of write a short movie story about a number of random characters, have one protagonist and at least one antagonist, make up random items for the people to use. So I just use that same simple format, and then I would go through the story that it would created, and then I would, instead of just asking how the people may have done something, I say actually rewrite the story, including the details. So instead of asking how Max, for this example, how Max played a trick and stole the puzzle, because it would probably just say, well, this is one thing that could have happened. I would say actually rewrite the story, but explain how Max tricked Jane. Now what's interesting is it's actually pretty smart. Instead of just rewriting the whole story, it just goes to a certain spot, it says this spot right here, and just fills in a bunch of details. And then instead of just saying, oh, he plays a trick on her and steals the puzzle and runs away, it explains how he acted like he was admiring her skills at a Rubik's Cube, and then when she was distracted, he quickly swiped one of the puzzle pieces and put it in his pocket. So using this format, ChatGPT is actually really good at creating movie stories. But anyway, if you haven't seen the final product, then you can click right here to watch it. A wumpus in the wild. Speaking of which, I have a Discord server you could join. Link in the description.